Hello and welcome to this episode of Roots of the Valley. I'm your host John Franklin, and today we are going to be talking about the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy. I'm here with Celisa Hopkins. She's the executive director. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure.
Now, this land that the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy was on, I heard that it actually used to have a railroad on it. Can you tell me a little bit about that transition?
True story, yes. In the 80s, the Burlington Northern Railroad moved out of the area. They were no longer transporting fruit down from the canyon to out to Cowiche and Tieton, and a group of community members saw an opportunity to convert the old rail bed to a trail, and that the canyon is a really unique and beautiful place, and so they wanted to make sure that it stayed that way and wasn't developed.
Okay, so how long was the railroad there before it was taken down and turned into trails?
I think that the railroad was built like between 1906 and 1910, so
Wow.
it was there for a long, good long while.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the process of it actually becoming the conservancy. Like I know you mentioned that it started out as an idea to make the that beautiful area to
Sure.
conserve the land, but like what was the actual checklist behind turning it from railroad into getting the land into conserving it?
So there were these folks, community members, who they formed a nonprofit. That was the first thing they did, and then worked to purchase the right-of-way in the rail bed. And there were some challenges from neighbors who didn't want the trail, a trail to be there. But they went through whatever legal battles they needed to. They formed in 1985, and then it was in 1989 when they actually officially acquired the right-of-way. And for that 3-mile span of trail, they paid $1,000.
Wow, $1,000 for all that land.
Yes, yeah.
So how long did it take to take down the railroad and put it into a trail, or has it always just sort of been a trail? They just sort of slightly take away the
I think they
railroad?
just, I don't know, to tell you the truth, but I think that the rail pulled out all of the infrastructure.
Oh, really?
The rail line, yes, because I think that in the steel, there's value in that. So I think they pulled out all the rail lines. So that wasn't a process that the organization had to do. They just, there hasn't been a lot of change in terms of the rail bed since that we've taken ownership of it. There's been one bridge that washed out, but other than that, the old railroad bridges are still intact there in the canyon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it originally started out as just a trail, and then slowly grew and grew into the over 40 miles we have today. How has that growth been?
Well, it's been slow and steady, I would say. So over the last 40 years, there has been, for a long time actually, the organization was really focused just primarily on the canyon, and then started to recognize that it was important to protect the surrounding area around the canyon. And so they bought up parcels as they became available from neighboring landowners. And then in the early 2000s, there was an opportunity for the organization to expand from just the canyon-focused to a Snow Mountain Ranch. And there was an opportunity to buy a 2,000-acre ranch, whereas the organization at that time only owned 200 acres. And so there was a significant conversation in the organization about, do we stay focused on the canyon, or do we expand our vision and our mission to include protecting more habitat than just the canyon? And thankfully they made the choice to take that leap, and in 2005 acquired the Snow Mountain Ranch property, which was really the beginning of the organization acquiring additional properties to protect shrub steppe habitat.
Okay. So I know it's called the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy. However, at this point, is the land more canyon or more other area?
It's a mix, yeah. We have that conversation every now and then. Does our name still fit? But so we have the Cowiche Canyon property. We have property at Rocky Top, which is just across Summit View from the canyon, Snow Mountain Ranch. And then in 2022, we acquired property at Cowiche Pass. So we also own over 700 acres and manage another 1,500 there at Cowiche Pass as well. So yeah, we're not contained just to the canyon any longer.
Okay. So you mentioned that in the 90s, it was a lot of volunteers working. When did the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy get big enough to warrant needing an office and now employees and full-time staff?
When they made that jump from the 200-acre preserve to the 2,000 acres, the organization at that point realized that they needed to have staff, more structure, additional resources. There was going to need to be fundraising in order to be able to support staff, and also just to manage that much land. I think people often think of trails and think, oh, this land is just here, but there's a lot that goes into taking care of the land and making sure it stays healthy and mitigating for the impacts that we have when we create trails, erosion and things that happen as a result of people on the landscape in a different way.
So I was looking through a couple of the pictures and old newspaper clippings, and it seems like education is a big part of the conservancy as well. Can you tell me a little bit about how that all fits in?
Sure. So our mission is to protect shrub steppe habitat and to connect people to the landscape. And the way that we do that is both through the trail system and non-motorized recreation, but also through education. And our hope is that by engaging people with the land, teaching people about what's out there, about the ecosystem, its value, how the different species are interdependent with one another, the species that depend on the shrub steppe for their survival, that people will be invested in the care of the land and want to see shrub steppe protected. There's a lot of myths, I would say, about shrub steppe in the way people perceive it or think that it's just a wasteland or there's no life out there. But you get out close and there is an amazing tapestry of life that exists out in the shrub steppe.
So how exactly has the Cowiche Canyon helped to protect the shrub steppe and even restore it a little bit? I mean, do you go out and plant stuff or do you just sort of let it do its own thing?
Both. We purchased land and then, protect it as habitat. So that's one way we conserve shrub steppe. Snow Mountain Ranch was a former hay and cattle operation. So it was a working ranch. The uplands of that property were grazed and then the lowlands were farmed. It was irrigated ag. And so when we purchased the property, there was a lot of restoration work that went into returning it more to its natural state. And there's 2 fields there out at Snow Mountain Ranch that one of them is almost a monoculture of Great Basin wild rye, which is what was planted, what did very well in establishing itself. And native shrub steppe would be more diverse. You would see more shrubs. It wouldn't be such a monoculture of one particular type of grass in that. There would be more diversity. So we continue to work to try and make it more diverse, to provide opportunities for other plants to compete and establish themselves.
So has that process been the same since the 90s, or has there been other strategies and other ways to conserve the shrub steppe?
Well, one thing we know is that once shrub steppe has been converted out of its natural state, it's much harder to restore it than it is to protect existing shrub steppe. So I would say our strategy is to look at the places where we have intact habitat that is connected to other habitat. When you think about species and migration of species, and how they use habitat, it's important they have corridors that they can move through. So we're looking to grow the core of shrub steppe that exists, to connect it with other protected properties so that species that depend on it can move as they need to. And especially as climate conditions change, when there's less water, more fire, they need to be able to move and adapt to changing conditions.
So we've spoken a lot about the past of the Conservancy. However, what's upon the horizon?
Well, just looking at where are the last best places of shrub steppe to protect, to continue to engage the community in the work that we do through education and trail systems. We always have are paying attention to what properties help connect the shrub steppe, and also properties that are coming up for sale or at risk for development. And figuring out how we might protect those.
Okay. So you mentioned to me earlier that you've been in your position for, or at least with the Conservancy, for over a decade. How did you get here?
Oh, I've worked in nonprofits my whole adult life, and I started here doing fundraising work. And because most nonprofits have a small staff, everybody does a little bit of fundraising as part of that. And so I started out doing the fundraising work for the organization, and have always loved being outdoors, enjoy teaching, that education piece of the work that we do. And so somebody that I knew that was connected to the organization asked if I would be interested in applying to do the development work, and it's been the best decision I made. It's combines many things that I love, and who doesn't love to be outside in the shrub steppe on a beautiful day?
I know I sure would love to be outside with the shrub steppe. So what have you done as the executive director to help grow the area and the shrub steppe?
Yeah, one of the things that we've continued to acquire land. I can't tell you an exact number over my time here, but we just this year completed this original plan that the organization had for a Cowiche Canyon preserve, the property not only in the canyon, but the property surrounding up in the uplands on the south rim of the canyon. And we purchased 80 acres this April. That was the last piece of that original plan. Conowalk Pass, we'd added that property, that a new area during my time. One of the other things that's been really important to me as the executive director is that when we acquire land, we say we're going to protect it in perpetuity, and forever is a long time. So it's very important that we have funds that can sustain an organization and take care of it over the long haul. So I've worked to establish an endowment fund to build that, and also to increase the amount of funds we have in land and stewardship for the long-term caretaking of the land.
So when you think about your mission right now, and then you look back to the original proposal and see what their mission was, is it the same mission?
In some ways, yes. I mean, I think that the original mission was protecting places that are unique and beautiful and important in terms of habitat, and that continues to be our mission. The scope of work has certainly expanded from one particular geographical place to a type of habitat, and as well as our education efforts and engagement with the community. That's also expanded significantly.
And why do you love this land so much?
Oh, it's, when I go out I was just out this morning in the uplands, and I think it's beautiful. I think the muted colors that are in the shrub steppe are beautiful. It never ceases to surprise me in that I see something I haven't seen before, or see something in a new way. It helps me be more present, grounded where I am. I feel deeply connected to this community, and I think that the beauty of the shrub steppe is one of the things that makes this community unique. And having easy access to these trails certainly improves my quality of life. And I think for many people, it's enhances well-being in our community.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today, Celisa. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Roots of the Valley. You can watch all the rest of our episodes on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@KIMA Action News. And new episodes are going to be coming out on the 1st and on the 3rd Sunday of each month. Thank you so much. Thank you again for letting me